for another coffee with Kilroy, or what I sometimes call, many times call, well, most of the time call, beverage and a book. My beverage, well, I think you know what that is, and I really do need this today. But when I'm filming this, not necessarily when I'm posting this, I have returned, or 3/5 of my family have returned to the country. Picked them up late last night, got home well after 3 a.m. and got to bed well after 4:30, closer to 5, and was up and to work and to filming this before I get to work. So really going on some burning fumes right now. So bear with me as I get through this, but this was the only time I had to do this before I had to get a lot of stuff done. So the book, well, is this really a book? It is kind of a book. I mean, it's a bound book, and I've covered these kind of as books before, but this is a full game from Minden Games. This is Dreadnoughts and Battlecruisers, Tactical World War I Naval Wargame, High Seas Deluxe Edition with solo module by Gary Graber, who is the proprietor of Minden Games. And you'll check out my playlist under Minden or under Gary Graber or under Graber, and you'll find a lot of the other offerings that I've covered. Minden, couple things about Minden. They cover all kinds of games, air and land and naval, but predominantly naval, or at least some of what I find their better titles and more interesting titles cover naval warfare. From World War I, World War II, and there are different rule sets, but they seem to have similar concepts or designs within those rule sets. Another thing about Minden Games is they are kind of a do-it-yourself game company. So these fall into wargame books. I put that in my wargame book section, which not always are do-it-yourself. Sometimes they're self-contained. But there are several in that series or in that playlist, including this one, that you have to build it yourself, meaning that you're are going to have to make your own counters, and there's a lot of counters in this book towards the end that you could actually cut out the pages and play with the little flimsy paper counters, or you could, make a copy and then print it on a sticker sheet and then put it on some better substrate or stock to make your counters, or however you want to do it. Sometimes Minden even goes so far as to provide deluxe kits with their games that have a little bit thicker counters. They're not counter quality. They're not the kind of core board that you would expect for board game counters, but they're like a poster board or a player aid type material. This one, I don't know if there's a deluxe edition, but this is the deluxe edition for this game. So what you have in here is stuff that you're going to, need to make copies of and build yourself. This is also somewhat of a miniatures game. I mean, you can play this on a tabletop, or you can play it as miniatures, or you can use their counters that they have in there. So there's different ways to play this. So if you go the miniatures route, there's not a lot to do it yourself. You're just going to have to figure out how you're going to use the reference cards or use the counters for the ships as reference. Here's the back of the book, which has some of your key tables, your fire combat, your critical hit table, and those are inside the book as well. And another do-it-yourself type project, in that if you want to have all your charts and everything out to the side and easily referenced, then you're going to have to make copies and pull those out as well. But enough of that. Let's get into the book as I get another cup of coffee, or another sip of coffee, because I desperately need it before I finish this and then get to the real work of the day. So as I said, it's bound like other Minden Games. It's kind of a book or wargame book. Here's your table of contents. Introduction, how to use this book. He has that in all his book offerings or Minden game offerings that are coming in the book format. Standard game instructions, optional rules, scenarios, solitaire tactical display, designer notes, ship facilities, game markers, scale and system rationales, reference section, fire progression tables, national ship ratings, ship damage logs, scenario log sheets, ship data forms, ship counter index, the Dreadnoughts and Battleships, or D&B Baltic Module, Minden Games, a little bit about them, notes and credits. There is also a solo module in this. That's something that made this was interesting to me. There is a whole solo series. I think it's called Great Salvo, or Salvo, that is done by this by Gary and by Minden Games, and that's one of my favorite games of theirs. That is a solo version of playing naval combat. It's based on World War I like this one. There is a World War II edition of that. However, that is no longer in print. You can get it by PDF, but it's the same kind of system, but it updates it with World War II ships. Getting started with D&B, if you are new to miniature gaming, familiarize yourself with D&B by reading the introduction page and then the standard game instructions. To play the introductory scenario, you will have to construct several warship counters needed for it. These counters may be found on page 37 and following. The instructions on how to construct them are provided on page 36. So there's kind of your do-it-yourself stuff I was talking about. Also, the point that this is really more of a miniatures game, but it provides you with counters to use as the miniatures, but you can actually use actual miniatures if you want to, but then you're going to have those counters kind of as your reference card for those ships. And the rest of this is the rules, and there's your layout of the counters, or the ship counters, with all the different aspects of that ship right there on the counter. And again, a lot of this same information is what you might see in some of his other naval offerings. And so again, there's a lot of similarity between his systems. And another thing that's a similarity between the system, there's usually a standard rules, which are usually, 2, 3, 4 pages. Then there are advanced rules, and then there are optional rules. So you have a lot of modularity, or a lot of ways to play his games in that you can start out simple. If you want a little bit more chrome, you can add in the chrome. And if you want even a little bit more, you can go for that. So that's something I like about Minden Games as well, is that you can kind of progress as you see fit. If you feel like you can handle it or want to get right into the toughest thing, which the games are not overly complex. Even with all the rules, they're not overly complex. But if you want to, get the maximum chrome, then you can go read all the rules and go right for it. There's some tables in here, and actually some examples as well. As you can see, it's full color. This is the deluxe edition, so you're going to have some colored pages in here, and some imagery, and some colored charts throughout. Here are some of those optional rules here. So you're not talking, we're at 12 pages and getting into the optional rules. So again, not an overly complex game. And again, a lot of his naval games share some similar mechanics or similar concepts, which is, if you're familiar with his systems, then any one of these is probably easier to access and get into. Then you've got and you can get into more detail on the damage. Here's national characteristics. Here's your narrative damage. So this, it's not just, you got to hit and take damage. It gets a little bit more detailed on where that damage is. So it gives you a little bit more of a feel for the conflict and what's going on. You have scenarios here. Of course, in World War I, you've got some of the classics like Cornell and Falklands and Jutland over here. But there's several of these scenarios from A to Q. You can do the math there. Here's the Solitaire variant. Starts on page 27. And this looks similar to the Salvo. I don't know if it's the exact same system or if it's kind of a derivation of that, but it looks somewhat similar there. And then there's your Solitaire tactical display. And I've actually played Salvo on a plane. I really like it. Here is your designer notes. And then you get the rest of this, or most of the rest of this is ships. So again, you've got your ship key telling of all the key elements, and then there's just pages and pages of ships. They're one-sided so that you can pull this out or make a copy of this, or not worrying about the bleeding over of the counters that might be on the back side. But the rest of most of the rest of this is all the different ships of the World War I that might be part of the scenario, or something you might want to make up for your own scenarios. There was a game that I played, I think it was like from Task Force. It was a little pocket game, war game called Battle Wagon that I played the living daylights out of. Really loved it. And this looks like a much more simplified version of that game. You've got merchant ships, and then here's your game markers, again, that you need to make, that are just kind of more administrative type markers. And then here's the scale and system rationale. Again, this at its heart is a miniatures game, so it's going to talk a little bit about scale. And here's the reference section, all your different tables that are in here that you're going to need, for playing the game. And then there's some here's the standard game, fire progression, then you have advanced games, so you want to get into some more detail or chrome on the combat. And then you've got this right here, incremental odds chart. I think this is part of an optional rule. And then here's your national ship ratings, which I always find this interesting, all the different key aspects of the ships of the day. And then you have some logs. Here's a log, and here's a scenario log to keep track of stuff. And of course, you can make copies of this as needed, and then an index of everything in here. And then there is some more. This is the Baltic Module, which kind of is an expansion, I guess, that's built into this, that has some more ships that are involved. And then World War I solitaire games from Minden, so this is a little bit of an advertisement for some of their other games. These are land as opposed to the sea. Here's some of their historical naval games. Covered U-boat captain, Great War Salvo, that is the game I was talking about. I've covered that. I've covered their TOG. And what else have I covered on this page? Then there's World War II Salvo. I wonder if that was out of print last time I checked, so I need to check to see if that is back. Cause I can get it on PDF, and actually Gary offered to just send it to me, but I kind of like having these books to cover and talk about. So anyway, I'm just an old-fashioned and old school. Anyway, and there's some notes, and there you have it. So that is Dreadnoughts and Battlecruisers. If you are looking for a miniature rule set, and you can have it come up with a system how to use their counters as kind of a ship key or a ship information chart for the miniature, then this might be your cup of tea. Or if you just want to cut out these miniatures, make your own, cut out these counters and make your own, use these counters. You've got a whole set of rules in here. If you want something simpler and going, solitaire, then the Great War Salvo, I'd highly recommend that. But, I think there's some similarities between each of these and each of his other naval titles, and I might do a separate section or segment just covering that. But for now, I thought I'd pick this up and take a look at this. This is kind of when I have World War I naval, I've got several games and systems, but this is kind of my Minden Games is something I kind of keep coming back to as I explore this area. Anyway, love to know your thoughts on this game, on any of the other Minden Games or offerings. Chime in down below. Anyway, thanks for stopping by. I've got to finish my coffee or two and then get back at it. Take care, all. Thanks for watching.